episod am powerful și am powerful. Puteți să-mi spuneți ce faia dacă vreți. Căștile nu stau acum pe urechi. Ok. Și astăzi suntem aici cu Henry the Creeper. Dacă nu știți cine e Henry the Creeper, și o să-mi povestea cum l-am luat acum. Păi, practic, m-am dus la McDonald's, am vrut să iau Flint and Meal, dar aveau doar o versiune de pe Wish și mi-a venit un redstone block. Și eram, se desface. Și pe înăuntru a fost Henry. Deci acum îl folosesc ca un fel de Pokémon și când este un foarte rău îl explodez. Cam așa. Ok, hai să continuăm. Pam.
Back in 2011, Angry Birds was everywhere. They had multiple
Am uitat să spun, uităm la Sunny V2, The Slow, Painful, Greedy Death of Angry Birds.
different games, toys and movies, generating hundreds of millions of dollars. But by 2019...
Țin minte Angry Birds, mamă, ce era faină. Era faină. Ăsta e Angry Birds, uitați-vă. De ce că e? Ok, acum de două ori am acest videoclip. L-am luat. De două ori.
They were firing masses of staff, and since then things have only gotten worse. Perhaps it's just karma for stealing the initial idea. Angry Birds wasn't an original concept. In April 2009, a game was released named Crush the Castle, which required players to fire a trebuchet into a wooden structure hiding medieval people. Well, 8 months later, in December 2009, game developer Rovio made an app named Angry Birds, which, while clearly being a rip-off, was better in every way. It had cooler, cleaner animated graphics and different stages, each with different levels. You got points for every enemy killed and points for every bird you didn't use, giving players the chance to compete for high scores. Throw in 5 different birds with 5 different abilities, as well as a cool, catchy soundtrack.
Care a fost preferata voastră? Scrieți în comentarii. Sincer, cred că a meu a fost ăștia. Pe fata să niciodată n-am învățat să folosesc. Vreți? Mamă, ce m-a sperat. Vreți să, nu știu, facem un video cu Angry Birds? Poate mâine. Ăsta a fost preferatele mele. Pe departe.
And it's easy to see that Angry Birds was better. They'd developed 51 games prior to Angry Birds, none of which saw even the smallest bit of success. Therefore, when Angry Birds took only 2 months to become the #1 paid app in 60 countries, they understandably took the chance to milk it. They'd make loads of different varieties like Angry Birds Seasons, Angry Birds Space and Angry Birds Star Wars, helping it become the #1 paid app in Apple's App Store, with 6 to 7 million paid downloads. By the end of Angry Birds' first year, they'd made $10 million US, but players still demanded more. We have so many fans who have asked for the plush toys, so these are going to be available in a couple of weeks, and we're really trying to build Angry Birds into this entertainment franchise. It took only 4 months before that announced 60,000 Angry Birds soft toys have been sold, as the game itself became the best-selling paid app of all time. Within Angry Birds itself, they'd implement microtransactions like Mighty Eagle, which allowed players to pay to clear entire levels, with celebs like Justin Bieber even advocating for it. Angry Birds made $100 million in 2011 and went from 28 employees in the beginning of the year to 224 employees by the end of 2011. 5 months later, they set a new world record, first mobile game series to reach 1 billion downloads. They'd double their revenue again by the end of 2012, at which
Yikes.
point they started to face a serious problem. The game was getting stale. They'd made multiple different Angry Birds versions, but hadn't changed the concept in over 3 years. As a result, in the following year, their profits more than halved, with Angry Birds falling to 59th in the App Store, forcing the franchise to try a new format. They'd release Angry Birds Go at the end of 2013, and while this was somewhat of a Mario Kart ripoff, people absolutely loved it.
So, I mean, it's fun. It is good fun. It looks good. It plays well.
Professional reviewers gave it 7.7, while people on Reddit called it their favorite Angry Birds game, and perfection at its finest. Rovio therefore continued to experiment, releasing an RPG game named Angry Birds Epic, which again received incredible reviews, rating the latest
Ce joc vreau să ne jucăm? Care este pe computer? Angry Birds. Spuneți și mă joc.
Angry Birds title is a welcome addition
Cel mai
to a
popular,
franchise,
normal,
which
care vreți
hasn't
voi.
seen much change since its inception.
Deci doar scrieți un joc și dați like la ăla care l-a apreciat să îmi fie mai ușor să aflu care vreți. Că nu o să citeți că acum 100 de minute comentarii, doar dați like și văd că are ce mai multe like-uri și pe ăla îl fac.
Back in 2009. Similarly, users said it might be the best RPG title I've ever played.
And honestly, a pretty solid time. I think the approach they went with here really worked and paid off.
The only problem was, these games didn't sell merch like the original Slingshot format. Therefore, merchandise sales plummeted, while total 2014 revenue dropped, and profits fell 73% to 10 million euros. As a result, media outlets reported, Rovio lays off 110 people as Angry Birds hype fades, representing 14% of the company's workforce. They try to fix their decline with yet another experiment, Angry Birds Pop, which was pretty unsuccessful. In a Reddit thread asking out of all the Angry Birds games, which one do you think is the worst, Pop was mentioned many times over. Therefore, they'd go back to basics and put out Angry Birds 2, the official sequel, although many called it a downgrade from the original. The sequel was filled to the brim with microtransactions, clearly annoying the fan base who wrote, "This is a very greedy game that keeps sucking money out of you. If you play well, the game becomes harder and harder until it's impossible, and then you either have to replay each level 10 times or buy gems. The game is just trying to throw you off balance and get under your skin so that you pay more." The official IGN review said the game took significant steps backward for the massively popular series. Angry Birds 2 is missing key parts of what made previous games so universally compelling to gamers both hardcore and casual, young and old. Still, due to its intense monetization, Angry Birds 2 became their highest earning game. Surprisingly, however, that very same year, they'd announced losses of almost 15 million and would fire a further third of their workforce, this time being over 200 people. This seemed to imply that Angry Birds was dead until they'd make an unexpected comeback. Turns out they'd spent the previous 3 years privately developing the Angry Birds movie. At a cost of 73 million, they'd made a risky bet, but with a star-studded cast and a fun little story, the Angry Birds movie did surprisingly well. It made over 350 million from its 70 million budget and put Angry Birds back into the public spotlight. People began replaying their previously released games, while Angry Birds theme parks popped up in different countries. Media outlets reported Rovio Games had its best year ever in 2016. However, the gaming releases that Angry Birds was known for was still declining in quality. In his video, I played and ranked every Angry Birds game so you don't have to, Jake Miller talks about Angry Birds Action.
Angry Birds Action was the start of using the new anthropomorphic designs from the movies in their games, which I think most fans agree was the real beginning of the end for the series.
Which happened to be the first game after the movie. Similarly, in the Reddit thread asking about the worst Angry Birds game, one user implied it was most of them after the movie's release. Said games included Angry Birds Fight, aka a Candy Crush ripoff, as well as Angry Birds Match, which was described as extremely bland. However, thankfully for Rovio, their older titles were still extremely popular, better, with Angry Birds 2's revenue growing 47% in 2018, despite it being over 3 years old. This gave them the budget to make a second movie. However, their $65 million bet didn't pay off so well this time. Forbes wrote Angry Birds 2 is worse than the original in nearly every way, whilst Rotten Tomatoes critics added, a distressingly ineffective sequel that grows less and less interesting and more tiresome as it unfolds. Still, the movie made a profit of $82 million, right as the company was making some weird changes. Despite their older games being low maintenance, Rovio decided to completely stop updating them. Then, without explanation, some of the older beloved titles, including the original Angry Birds, were deleted from the App Store. When people began to talk about what they'd done, people made compilations stating Angry Birds was dead. There were comments like, "Remember when Rovio actually cared?" whilst hashtag BringBack2012 began to trend on Twitter. Things got so bad that Rovio apologized, stating they only did it as maintaining the highest quality of updates and live operations isn't possible with our older games. In response to the backlash, that announced they planned on redeveloping Angry Birds Classic, which was re-released on the App Store in 2022, but at a price of $1.99 with no in-game purchases. They'd changed Classic's name to Red's First Flight, making it harder to find in the App Store, thus prompting players to buy the newer, more profitable games. This successfully fooled some people who struggled to find it on the App Store. However, others knew exactly what Angry Birds was doing. They got rid of the old ones so that you would have no other choice than to play the modern Candy Crush-esque games. They despised the games that made the company and so lost its spirit. Rovio basically confirmed this, openly stating they changed the name due to the game's impact on our wider games portfolio. They further requested that fans continue to bring that passion to our live Angry Birds slingshot games, such as Angry Birds 2, however players weren't too happy. We hope those fans can continue to bring that passion to our other games which have been designed to be more psychologically manipulative and stuffed with more microtransactions. Fixed it for you. The drama was so severe, it seemingly halted any future games, as Angry Birds Classic is still the most recent title, released way back in 2022. In 2023, Rovio was sold to Sega, although this has done little to fix their reputation. One recent tweet expressed, "I very much still..."
Sega! Aoleu, Aoleu, ții minte când eu eram obsedat, încă sunt obsedat cu Sonic și eram obsedat cu Sonic chiar când eram mic și singurul joc pe care aveam pe telefon era gen Sonic 1 și gen am putut să trec de a doua lume și de câte ori am auzit aia Sega, aoleu, the good old times, că jocuri chiar au fost, că jocuri chiar au fost faine, nu e așa, Creeper? Am uitat, tu nu poți să vorbești, deci te ascund, nu mai vorbi.
That said, the current state of it is dog shit. My hope for the franchise is at an all-time low right now. I'll just continue to enjoy what I love about it, but it's sad to see what it's become. Despite everything, Angry Birds isn't finished, as they just announced they're making a third movie, although with the rest of the franchise in decline, its performance might...
Și hai să ne uităm la două Epic Games.
Plants vs. Zombies 1.
Ne-am uitat la asta. Stai o secundă. Doar la asta n-am uitat. The Most Evil. Ok.
Okay. One was truly video game perfection. Reviewers couldn't find even one thing wrong with its simple, addictive gameplay. Compare this to the recent Plants vs. Zombies 3, which people have called a game that straight up comes from a garbage can, in which watching 30...
Și Plants vs. Zombies o să ne jucăm gen 1, și o să trec la 2 și o să trec la 3. Din ce în ce mai prost.
Second ads for double coin rewards is more fun than the game itself. Let's explore how Plants vs. Zombies eventually lost its way from an amazing tower defense game fall into the extremely predatory mobile game landscape. Firstly, what made
Încă nu
the
s-a
original
întâmplat
so
chiar
damn?
rău să-mi scot clip în afară de intro pentru să vă arăt ce facem, deci... Stai o secundă, tu funcționezi? L-am folosit ca un Angry Bird, așa că am funcționat. Îl folosesc ca un... Este un pea shooter. Hei, zombie! Prinde asta! Nu din rău! Ok, nu știu de ce tot repet gluma asta. Nu o să mai fi amuzantă, dar... N-am ce să fac, n-am ce alte edituri să fac, pentru că... Astăzi mă duc de acasă și, da.
Good, at a price of just $2.99 in the App Store, with no ads or extra in-game purchases, Plants vs. Zombies 1 was simply amazing value. The easy first level gets players addicted immediately.
In just one level, the game already indoctrinates you into its gameplay cycle flawlessly and in a fun way.
With one 5-star review writing, I won't say that the game is a cakewalk, but it isn't particularly challenging either. Still, the game offers enough mental stimulation that I never once grew bored. This is due to the game's incredible variety, offering loads of different plant zombies and music, with comments stating the soundtrack alone is enough to make you want the game. This makes it so entrancing that people can play for hours, which led to crazy commercial success. In addition to almost perfect professional reviews, Plants vs. Zombies became the highest rated App Store product, having sold more than 300,000 copies in its first 9 days available, a new App Store launch record. Developers expanded the game to 13 other platforms, creating so much success for PopCap Games they'd be bought by EA for $650 million. Yep, EA. The company was such an extreme reputation for greed, there's an entire Wikipedia page dedicated to criticism of the company. People have called their use of microtransactions a plague, which sadly began to infect Plants vs. Zombies, because on the 15th of August 2013, Plants vs. Zombies 2 came out, with one key difference compared to the first.
PopCap found a way to cram this game with as many in-app purchases and microtransactions as humanly possible, to the point where it's too much of a hindrance for me to actually enjoy the game.
Plants vs. Zombies 2 features microtransactions. Unlike in the previous entries to the series, new plants can be purchased with real money, as well as upgrades and coins. These items can also be bought in bundles to save some money.
Observ cum se strică jocurile. Observ cum se strică jocurile și tare nu vreau să pun în jocul meu, că o să fac unul, nu știu când o să încep. Nu vă promit că o să fie recent, nu vă promit că o să fie bun, nu o să promit că o să lansez versiunea asta de acum, dar de postat un joc și să-l fac pe bune, îl fac. Poate în câțiva ani, nu știu.
Money. Certain plants could only be accessed using cold hard cash, and while coins could be naturally earned in-game, you could pay up to $52 to instantly unlock them. The Pirate Seas and Wild West levels can also be unlocked without earning all of the required stars. They cost $5.49 each to instantly access. More controversial for whatever reason was the game's new art style. People argued that every single character looked to be designed by a totally different person, each of whom had their own way of drawing. There's full videos dedicated to the poorly designed plants, with the excessive discussion about this flaw being a meme within the community. This was because they'd hired a whole new team of designers, and under suspicious circumstances fired George Fan, who designed PvZ1 all by himself. Well, an article later confirmed EA fired Plants vs. Zombies creator for refusing microtransactions in sequel, explaining that George had lost his job as he didn't agree with the pay-to-win model. He'd partially confirmed this by tweeting, regarding recent rumors, it is true I was laid off by EA/PopCap, and also true that I was against making PvZ2 a freemium game. That's all I'll say on the matter for now. Sure do miss paying for a game once, and unlocking cool things by actually, you know, playing that game. You and me both, man. These elements led to videos claiming Plants vs. Zombies 1 is better than Plants vs. Zombies.
Și spun de aici, totul spun pe care am și să fac mai bine. Jocul meu o să fie o să fie microtransaction, dar stați liniștiți, nu o să pun, ia, dai 100 de teri și primești cea rămasă care evaporează jumătate din planetă. Nu! Stați liniștiți, nu o să fac de astea. Dar totuși vreau să pun microtransaction pentru că o să fac jocuri gratis. Și am nevoie de un mod să fac bani.
Too, but that's not to say that the second game was awful. It featured so many different plants it's hard to even count them, and offered 312 levels compared to just 50 in PvZ1. These PvZ2 levels were each set at varying levels of difficulty, better serving a wider range of players. The second game therefore also received amazing feedback, with critics stating the game is just as enjoyable without spending a dime, and that you'll only need to pay if you're exceptionally impatient or just not very good at these kind of games. The microtransaction model also meant the game was totally free, leading to 25 million downloads in the first 2 weeks, more than PvZ1 had achieved in 4 years. In fact, according to Hey I'm Jay, for every dollar the original was making, PvZ2 made 26,000. They'd therefore make the original free for every player, although this meant people would be paying with their time.
It's free now, which naturally means that the game absolutely bombards you with ads. God, I love mobile games. There are ads before and after levels now, and even during, where the game tries to distract you as much as possible to watch a video for an extra item.
Before every level you have to watch an unskippable ad, then sit there prompted to download what you watched. At the end of every level, you're forced to briefly play a different mobile game, with the hope that you'll download it later. Items can be earned by watching further ads, which are even served to those who initially paid for the game. You could say it's even more annoying than the microtransaction model, which was earning so much money for PvZ2 that start to build Plants vs Zombies 3. In the meantime, developers took a detour and put out Plants vs Zombies Garden Warfare.
Ăsta sunt ce mai abia aștept să mă joc jocul ăsta. Deci nu știți cât de mult am așteptat să pun mâna pe un computer, să fac jocul, gen să-l cumpăr și yoink! Să mi-l pun, dar mi-am făcut canalul și acum nu știu când să mă joc, pentru că nu prea am timp, deci ghinion. O să mă joc că n-am ce să fac.
Person shooter was certainly different, but extremely well received, achieving consistent reviews of 7 out of 10 or higher. Garden Warfare was surprisingly amazing. I remember spending definitely over 500 hours grinding it as a kid. They therefore released Garden Warfare 2, which was even more successful than the first, confirming the third-person shooter style was perfect for the series. So when they announced what was basically Garden Warfare 3, developers likely expected another successful title. It was called Plants vs Zombies Battle for Neighborville, which featured an epic trailer in 2019, gaining over 15 million views from super excited fans, but with people eventually stating,
"This whole trailer was fantastic and I love it. Too bad I love the trailer more than the game."
The game was a total flop. Plants vs Zombies Battle for Neighborville is one of the worst games you've never heard of. Extensive posts like this called it a complete and utter disaster in almost every way, and one of, if not the worst multiplayer game I have played in 2019. It referenced problems such as bugs and graphical errors, textures and map design are absolutely horrible, whilst the characters all control awfully and feel very unenergetic, since the sound design is absolutely garbage. Then, of course, there were the microtransactions.
These need to be unlocked, and the way you unlock these characters is through a specific challenge called giving EA $30. But the game already costs $30 to buy, and you expect players to spend that twice in order to play the new characters?
As mentioned, the game already costs
Bine, 40 $. Deci tu trebuie să plătești 40 de pe joc, pe gen ăla, gen. Ok, bun, ai plătit, dar din câte văi sunt caractere noi și mai dă bani, mai dă. Cât? 10 lei? Mai dă 30. Ce doamne!
$40, but demanded an extra 30 to unlock every character, which could be unlocked by grinding the game, but would take about 3 months to earn one costume. Players therefore dismissed the game completely, writing as a player who played the 2 previous games of this one, I can say that this game is a joke on the Plants vs Zombies franchise. Bad graphics, boring gameplay, boring characters. Compared to Garden Warfare 1 and 2, this game is very bad. They therefore stop updating it after only 11 months, leading to comments like it is so sad how fast this game died. If it had a little more time to develop and didn't have microtransactions, then it would have never disappeared. But apparently the franchise didn't learn their lesson, as during that very same year, Plants vs Zombies 3 was nearing completion. They'd had 7 full years since PvZ 2, setting high expectations for PvZ 3. However, when the first bit of gameplay was posted to YouTube, people instantly disliked it. PvZ 1, skill. PvZ 2, wallet. PvZ 3 won't download it. Why? For starters, the game was now in portrait, which to be honest was probably more convenient, but at the same time it looked extremely weird. The lawn is literally horizontal. Why? Why is the display vertical? The game had also gone from 2D to 3D and had another change in art style, prompting memes such as this. It is evolving just backwards. The new pea shooter model looked absolutely awful, which sadly couldn't be upgraded through microtransactions. With videos like Plants vs Zombies 3 is mechanically broken, gaining over 2 million views, PvZ 3 was taken off the App Store. They'd re-release it 1 year later, to which people said compared to the alpha this looks great, however again it still wasn't good enough. This happened again in 2022, then again in 2024, receiving the same feedback at every single point. The game was simply boring.
There is just nothing to do in this game, man, besides grind the stupid main quest that just sucks. 90-something levels of doing the same thing over and over and over is so boring.
I've just spent 3 hours playing the 4th beta of PvZ 3, and I gotta say, how does EA get away with this? The game is 10,000% dumbed down, no more collecting plants, no more input on plant choosing, sun is now worth 1 and plants cost 1 to 5 plus, animations feel capped at 10 FPS, gameplay feels unfun. Others complained it just had a scummy feeling.
Right out of the gate, it seems to just have that manipulative mobile game feel about it. You know that feeling.
Everything about this game feels off. It's like I'm watching an App Store ripoff of PvZ. As a result, it's still in development 5 years after its first alpha launch.
De când de vedeți, așa s-au stricate jocurile. Ce am învățat în această zi? EA.
Kids sleeping on the floor, pets held in tiny cages, and this entire...
Ok, ce am învățat? EA e cea mai proastă companie din lume. 1. 2. Jocurile sunt stricate doar dacă adaugi câțiva mulți gen microtransaction, gen multe și gen pay to win. Și 2 și 3 ultimul, nu-ți vinde jocul în EA Sports, pentru că probabil o să faci mai mulți bani dacă nu vinzi. Ok, cam atât am învățat astăzi. Creeper, faci... Stați și o să explodeze, sper. Cam atât a fost video clipul ăsta, sper că v-a plăcut, dai și subscribe, ne vedem data viitoare. Life is good, pa, pa, și ne vedem